Greetings, everyone. Welcome back to the Enterprise Edge podcast. This is Mark Vigoroso, founder and CEO of the Enterprise Edge. I'm pleased to be back with you in this early March of 2026, and I'm especially pleased to be joined today by a special guest, Daren Thayne, who's the founding CTO and EVP of product at Domo. He is based out of Utah, and we're going to have a fantastic discussion here about data and business intelligence in the enterprise AI era. For those of you who are baseball fans, we might end up making some baseball analogies because we just learned that Daren is probably the most passionate baseball fan I've ever met. Unfortunately, he's a Yankees fan and I'm a Red Sox fan, but I love him anyway. So without further ado, Daren, thanks for being here. Appreciate you taking the time.
Hey, glad to be here, and thank you for the opportunity.
No doubt. All right, well, let's get into it. We're going to follow a format that our regular listeners are going to be familiar with. We're going to start with a couple of icebreakers, just trying to get to know Daren a little bit. We'll get into some more meaty questions about what's going on with the company of Domo and the market at large and some strategy and really hopefully get into some pragmatic, maybe even advice or recommendations that people can take to heart and maybe even put to practice. And then we'll end with a speed round, a little bit of a dismount on some fun questions. We'll learn a little bit more and have a little bit more fun, and we'll be done before you know it. But let's get started. So Daren, we all have pasts, we all have history, and I think if I've done my research correctly, you spent a good amount of years at Ancestry.com, where you picked up a patent for correlating genealogy records, systems, and methods. And I'm infinitely curious about this one. I'm curious, like, what's the most valuable thing that you learned about data in general when you were working there? I would imagine genealogy is completely predicated on data, right? So what did you learn about data there?
Yeah, it feels like a lifetime ago, but I'd say there's a lot of great technology data challenges that we took on at Ancestry. And by the way, as a little side note, remember there was this time when we would gather around and genealogy.com was number 1 in the world, then RootsWeb was number 2, and we were number 3. And that's just like, that got us, right? That energized us. We ended up blasting past both of them, and then we acquired both of them. That was very satisfying. I attribute it to being, really we our great use of technology. And one example of that related to data, and I think it's applicable today, is, one core of technology that we developed was this, I'd call it a data factory. That started with this huge collection of images, and out of the other end came this greatly enriched data with added semantics and ontology and organized into a knowledge graph, right? And so if you think about a good example of that is the U.S. Census. As soon as the census becomes 72 years old, the National Archives releases it to the public. And we built this whole machinery for processing genealogical records like that. And we got so good at it that we did this little kind of a publicity stunt. Back in 2002 was the 72-year mark for the 1930 census. And genealogists everywhere were very eagerly awaiting for this census release. But the very first day, there was roughly, I think, 2,700 rolls of microfilm the National Archives released to the public. We demonstrated our prowess with that, where we scanned, extracted, indexed, and posted online an entire U.S. state on the very first day that it was available. Wow. So you didn't have to wait, right? It was there. We had machines in the National Archive that were doing scanning, and that was really cool. So if you think about it, the scanned microfilm images, they had dormant value. Like, not many people were going to raise their hand and send a request to National Archives to get their copy of those rolls of microfilm, because there was not a lot of value in the microfilm rolls in their raw format. But that core data asset became much more valuable with this additional semantic layer and then the graph that connects it all. And that was really the unlock for making all that data very valuable and very actionable. And I'd say that same pattern exists today, right? Having access to raw data is only so valuable. When you add a semantic layer, when you add an ontology, when you add a knowledge graph, that raw data becomes many times more valuable.
No, that's interesting. I wasn't aware of most of that. That's That's incredible. I love the story though about acquiring your two competitors.
Yeah, yeah, that was very satisfying for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we acquired both, folded them into the company. Yep.
Yeah. I had a similar experience, but we'll talk about it another time. But it is an interesting way, the world works. But I'm curious. Okay, fast forward, right? So now you're with Domo. We'll talk about Domo in a moment. There's a lot of, I would argue, maybe sensationalization of what's called vibe coding, as you know, and
Yeah.
the markets are spooked, as you can see, with regards to whether or not SaaS was even going to be a category anymore, right? With AI
Yep.
is just going to, there's products out there like, Claude Cowork and OpenAI Frontier and Cursor and all these. I've done a lot of work just kind of from my own perspective, offering the view that says that it makes good headlines, but I don't think SaaS is going anywhere. I think it's going to look different, but I don't think enterprise software is going anywhere. But that's sort of more context. It's not really the question. That's more context. The
Yep.
question is, when you look at tactically speaking, what vibe coding really is. I'm curious about your experience with it, and are you using it with your team, your development teams at Domo? And what have been some of your good, bad learnings,
Yeah.
regrets? Talk to me a little bit about your experience with that so far.
Yeah. I'd say the first learning experience we had when we first started vibe coding was, and really, it's interesting when it comes to producing production level software.
Mm.
It's AI's value isn't just in writing the actual code. It's also very impactful to the entire development and release process, right?
Mm-hmm.
So helping teams explore large code bases or the writing documentation, generating tests, updating tickets. So we went back and we started investing in connecting these LLMs to our entire dev process. So we leverage LLMs to access real tools like JIRA, Jenkins, our customer ticketing system,
Yep.
our elk logs. And so now with something like Claude Code using MCP, our developers can update tickets. They can just say, hey, here's a ticket, start researching for me, right?
Yeah.
And off it goes, right? Off these agents go. And then developers can update tickets, they can check build status, they can summarize test outputs, they can craft better pull requests and documentation, right? All through this natural language. And so it's exciting is that these are the like non-coding tasks that often don't get the same attention, yet they're essential, right, to this roles of a great engineering team.
Yeah.
So now it's faster, it's done more consistently, and it's less of a chore, right?
Mm.
So a lot of engineers, they don't like that parts of their jobs also, right? They love writing code and all this stuff they had to do, right? AI is really good at helping with that. And certainly there's a lot of code generation that AI is assisting in. In fact, some of my engineers assert that between 80 to 100% of the code of their code is now written by AI. So it's being leveraged certainly for a lot of code. But when you move beyond just vibe coding on a brand new project, you do need to bring AI into the entire orchestration of what developers do every day.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, a senior software engineer who knows how to leverage AI in the ways I described, they are super productive, right?
Yeah.
It's becoming woven into how we work, not just kind of bolted on as a novelty.
Right.
But another area I'd say where vibe coding is paying big dividends is I'd say in prototyping, right? I've often said, I've told people, hey, the value of an idea is one thing, but a mock-up of an idea is quite a bit more influential. But then if you go beyond that and you actually produce a working POC of an idea, right? That's a significant multiplier.
Yeah.
And so, there's a big difference between coming in and saying, let me tell you about my great idea, and coming in and saying, I have a great idea, let me give you a demo, right? So I think vibe coding is very empowering to these innovative thinkers, right? It enables them to really take action, really explore their ideas. It's really interesting.
It's incredible. Oh, it really is. And I think you've hit on a few things that are often overlooked, which is, think about the full breadth and depth of a, the remit of a developer and all the different tasks that they have. And developing coding is one of those tasks, but there are other tasks. right?
Exactly.
And it could be the case that, and like you just said, even in a non-production environment, just communicating internally with
Yep.
things like POC and right, and just something that's more demonstrable. If nothing else, could be a way more effective and efficient communication tool, right? Just to
Yes.
say, is this something worth doing or not? You can make a much better decision based on
Yeah.
something that's been like, spun up fairly automatically, right? As
Yes.
as opposed to, a paragraph or just, a verbal exchange. So I think that's powerful. That's powerful.
I
So
mean,
if we were to,
AI
if
writes
yep,
great pull requests right away, right?
yeah,
A lot of times an engineer will be reviewing a pull request and be like, oh, you didn't put enough detail in this. AI does a great job of that.
yeah. Well, I've learned a little bit. I've known Domo a while. It's been, I'm probably due for an update, but we'll do that another time. But I've done some research, and there's a release that you can keep me honest. I think it's called App Catalyst,
Yeah.
and I think it's in line with what we've just been talking about. And I'm curious to learn about the release, and you can sort of give us a little bit of a, in the context of that, a little bit of a thumbnail on Domo and kind of the company and what you're up to. But App Catalyst as sort of the tip of that spear, and what is it doing to help turn some of these AI ideas into production ready business applications, right? That have that robustness that you talked about, governance, security, data access, all that stuff. And just talk to me about that. I'd love to start there.
Yeah. I mean, I think you hit on it right there, right? As we
Yeah.
talked about, this vibe coding for sure is a thing. But I'd say when you start by standing on the shoulders of a governed and secure data layer, also with composable components, you really unlock your vibe coding experience. So you get this
Mm.
great benefit of you can bring the latest AI models to help you innovate, and you can direct it to build your app. But then when it's built, you can quickly deploy it in this governed and secure platform, and you can share it with your organization where all of your policies and governance models are enforced. And so that deployment just becomes a trivial thing, really. And you also, I'd say, you don't need bespoke code for all aspects of your solution,
Right.
right? And if you just start vibe coding something from the ground up, you're going to get a lot of bespoke code, a lot of custom code that, hey, there was already a component for that I didn't really need. And in App Catalyst, AI can assemble composable components that are just part of the platform that are available, and it can write custom code. And I think that combination results in a much more manageable overall app architecture. And
Mm.
I would assert that there's many enterprises that I'd say they're stuck in pilots with their vibe
Mm.
coder projects,
Yeah.
right? And App Catalyst is all about deployment at scale, not just sandbox domos, right? The
Mm.
whole Domo platform and all the components that are part of this composable platform that are all part of the same security governed model, right? Are all available for your app coding session.
Very cool. And when was that released, Darren? When was that? Was that recently?
We we first put it into beta release in last quarter of the year, and we did
Mhm.
a big marketing splash January, and
Okay. So
seeing
fairly recently. Yeah.
yeah, yep,
Got it. Well, it's great. I mean, we could kind of dive deeper into the kind of what Domo's mission is as a company, obviously very much steeped in the enterprise data world and all the challenges it represents and sort of the upheaval that it's going through, right? And, there's again headlines, right? I mean, tech media is not that different from mainstream consumer media, right? There people talking about, dashboards are dead and
yep,
BI is dead, and right, and it's all going to be embedded agentic, analytics and the workflows in real time, and right, it sells newspapers, as they used to say, right?
yep,
But I'm interested in getting to the facts and kind of reality, and I know that Domo's mission is to really help put data to work for everybody, and we've reached a point, I think, where most what you might call knowledge workers are, they have more than they could ever have dreamed, right? They have access to more dashboards and more metrics and more tools than they're probably meaningfully using. And I'm curious how you guys think about, how Domo and you in particular think about the difference between access to data and usefulness of data. And,
yeah.
a little bit, how do you cut through the noise and to deliver a compelling value proposition to your customers when, if you buy what I just said, which is they're kind of like awash in
Yeah,
tools and dashboards.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So talk to me about that one.
Yeah, I mean, I think that again points to this value of kind of the semantic layer, an ontology, a knowledge graph. For example, if you had, say you had 10,000 database tables and you point AI at it, you're going to get very mixed results if AI only has access to the rows of data and the table schemas, right? If that's all AI has, or even some of the models that you've built in there. But if you have the semantic layer, you have an ontology, and if you add in a knowledge graph, AI really will gain kind of superpowers with your data. And this problem of too many dashboards and metrics, reminds me of an observation I made some time ago. It was several years ago. We introduced apps into the whole Domo platform, and we started seeing very elegantly designed apps being built. Right, people were moving from dashboards, which were merely just giving them insights. And they were moving to, okay, let's build an app that not only can give us insights, but allows us to take action. But then as we started leaning into our workflow engine, which is now branded as Domo's Agent Catalyst, I started saying to my team, the most beautifully designed app will be one that no one ever sees, right? We were seeing all these really, really beautifully designed apps being built. And I saw the vision of this workflow engine and kind of how then you can start to build these agentic solutions. And that was my take, is that's the most beautifully designed apps when you're never going to see. And that's, so instead of having this app you have to engage with to gain insights or take action, wouldn't it be more elegant if the actual app was capable of operating on its own? It notifies you when you need to know something. It takes action for you when a condition's met. It's an invisible app. Right.
Yeah.
So that's that manifestation of what I would call the most beautifully designed app. And that's where the world is heading. Right. The agentic enterprise is going to be full of very elegantly designed apps that people rarely see.
That's right.
And that's going to be a better world than having, all of these dashboards you got to go and think about. Oh, I got to go look at this dashboard. I got to check on this dashboard. Yeah.
Yeah, that's totally right. I mean, maybe we'll kind of keep going down that path and maybe touch on strategy going forward. I think the agentic enterprise, the intelligent enterprise, right? This notion that it's never going to be a completely hands-free, I don't think, autonomous enterprise. There's always going to be humans, but they'll just be playing different roles, carefully orchestrated. And I think what you said about when a condition is met, right? So you're still designing logic that says, this particular app, perhaps invisible app, is going to perform the following actions under the following conditions, and then there's a bunch of if-then statements that says, okay, well, if the condition is partially met, or if it's not met, or if it's exceeded, then do this, or that, and all of that, right? And it could include a human intervention at one of those points, right? All of those things. And I'm curious, in the context of all of that, this notion of business intelligence, which for a long time meant data visualization and, effectively looking at data in the rear view mirror. I'm oversimplifying, but BI was more like reporting. It's more like reporting and maybe getting into some analytics, but really more like reporting in a non-operational context. It was sort of like you're on the sidelines.
Step one.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. But that's radically changing. And to your point, decisions based on data will not only, be exposed, but they will be actioned in some cases without a single human even knowing about it, right? So there won't be any dashboard to consult. The what would have been in that dashboard will be ingested by an app, and the appropriate action will be taken in response to or in anticipation of something that might have been in a dashboard at one point. And so the question becomes, are the headlines that dashboards are dead really true or partially true? And how is Domo positioning going forward in the context of some of that upheaval, right? And some of it has to do with build, integrate, buy, partner. What are you going to own? What are you going to not own? All of that. So maybe talk to me about sort of the strategic vision going forward for Domo and how you're going to carve out your lane as that new highway kind of evolves.
Yeah, I'd say Domo is committed to owning this orchestration and governance layer that integrates the customer's chosen data warehouses, right? And I often see, I used to see customers have this, they proclaim they're going to have, they're going to standardize on one data warehouse, right? And now I see that often people often aren't doing that. We see both Snowflake and BigQuery in the same account, or we'll see Databricks and BigQuery, right? And Domo's agnostic about which CDW you choose. Domo will empower your end users to innovate and unlock value from your data with our intelligent orchestration and governance layer. Because I think whether you're going to build a dashboard you're going to share, or you're going to build this what I call this elegantly designed, beautiful, invisible app, right? You need it to be on this trusted, orchestrated governance layer. So that's a clear area that we are continue to build moats around.
And are your customers, for the most part, buying into that and coming along that journey with you? Is that something that has been validated with in your conversations with customers, or are you having to bring people along? Is that like it has become a laborious task, or how's that going?
It's a mix of both, right? I see customers, and it's interesting when you see the light bulb go off, like when they get it and it clicks. Then I see this kind of innovation unlock when they realize, oh, okay, I've got this governed data layer where I've got all my governance policies. I've got all my users in this platform. And now I can easily do this or this or this, and I can create this invisible, agentic app that operates, and the deployment of it is almost trivial, right? Then they start coming up with all kinds of ideas, like, oh, I can do this also. I can do this also. But they're not all, everybody's not all there yet, for sure.
Yeah. That's also a truth, right? It's everybody's at a different place in the journey for a lot of reasons. Interesting. This is fascinating stuff. So couple, we burn through the time so fast, but we do have a few other speed round questions here, Daren, and then we'll definitely have you back as we get through the year here. We're still only 2 months into the year, so we've got a long way to go in 2026. But we talked about dashboards. I'm just curious, in a reasonable time period, do you think there still will be a role in the intelligent enterprise for what you might consider like a typical dashboard, which is, you could say, fairly static?
Yep.
It's consulted manually. It's interpreted by a human, right? Is that paradigm, you think, going to be entirely gone, or there'll still be sort of some use cases where that static dashboard still makes sense?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a mixture. I think, as we talked about, this agentic enterprise is going to you're going to end up with hundreds or thousands of agents that monitor, watch, take action, all that, right?
Yeah.
And as business users shift into a mode of using AI to have what I'd say have conversations with your data, right? Mm-hmm. So versus going in and using the UI to build some analytics, like using the user interface, you just leverage AI and have a conversation with your data. But we're going to see as people have conversations with their data, we're going to see more and more of these ad hoc analytics that's being done just in time by AI. But artifacts like dashboards, I think, are going to continue to get created and certified, right? And while AI they'll help you create those new artifacts, it will also be very good at leveraging those certified artifacts in how it answers your ad hoc questions, right? So every interaction with AI doesn't have to result in you burn all these tokens to come up with a new ad hoc answer, right? If you've got these certified artifacts that are already created in the system, and if your knowledge graph understands those and how they're related to each other, then I think there's going to continue to be this combination of purely just-in-time ad hoc analysis combined with trusted, certified, durable artifacts is how I would call it.
Yeah, it'll be kind of a lot of different ingredients that are sort of situationally driven in my mind. But again, it's hard to predict, right?
AI is making it much easier to create those durable certified artifacts.
Yes,
but I don't see them going away in the near term.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you a similar question about another area of enterprise data management, if you buy that term. But there's an entire category called ETL, extract, transform, load, or extract, load, transfer, depending on the context. And there are entire software companies built on this one use case, right? I
Yep.
happen to know a few of them, and you know, it's one of those areas I'm asking a very similar question. Is like, is that even required, or does AI kind of like just handle
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
transport of like messy unstructured data as sort of table stakes? So what happens to
Yep.
ETL in the future? Where's that going?
Yeah. Good question. I mean, and by the
Yeah.
way, that feature, we've got 6 core pillars of the Domo platform,
Yeah.
but that pillar, like the feature we call Magic ETL, like it's our
Hmm.
built-in
Yeah.
transformation engine. It's our user community's favorite feature, right? Every time we
Okay.
have a user conference, like we have more people excited about that. But I would say, it's I think the pattern for quite some time is going to be leveraging AI to help you author a robust and efficient ETL pipeline, right? That'll
Hmm.
continue to be a cost-effective pattern versus burning AI tokens to always perform kind of just-in-time transforms on messy data. Because,
Yeah.
like, if you think about it, those AI authored pipelines that then go into production, they need to be highly reliable, highly predictable, and versus if AI was just going to ad hoc transform all the messy data it sees as interacting, right? That's a very different pattern than AI can definitely help you build this kind of durable, reliable pipeline that then you can put into production for very low cost relative to leveraging AI. So I think that's
Got
going
it.
to happen. But 5 years, who knows what the world's going to be like in 5 years? It's getting really
I
difficult
know.
to forecast. It's hard to even know what next month's going to bring these days, right?
That's so
So
true. That's so true. Yeah, more so than I've ever experienced. I don't even know how to
yeah,
think about 2 years in advance, but no,
yeah,
that's a good counsel. And one of the hardest things to figure out as well, strategically, I think, in my experience these days, is competitive positioning, because there is a lot of posturing. There's a lot of lip service. There's a lot of people trying to get the benefit of a halo, right? Just by mentioning certain words, right?
yep,
And well, what I try to do is kind of get beyond all that and understand, put myself in the shoes of someone who's trying to make a decision, cutting to the chase, and really understand what the fundamental differences are amongst the options that they're faced with when it comes to solving various enterprise problems, right? Whether that's operational or analytical or financial or whatever. And so when I think about your competitors, and I'm not even sure I've got them right. You may have people that you compete against that are different from the ones that I would assume, but I think of guys like Tableau and Power BI and Click and some of the stalwarts that are sort of historical BI players. There's a ton of smaller players
there's a
that
ton.
are
Yeah,
they're partners with the big ERP. They're in the SAP ecosystem, in the Oracle ecosystem. There are dozens and dozens and dozens of BI, you could call it tools, right?
yep.
And so I'm just curious, how do you think about the competitive landscape? How prominent is it in your strategic planning, and how do you differentiate? I think you probably, what you talked about is that sort of governance orchestration layer probably
Yeah.
figures in, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, and that's how I think about it. I mean, the players you mentioned, and you use the term rear view mirror. That's kind of how I would describe it, right? They
Yeah.
excel at visualizations and dashboards and the stuff that's in the rear view mirror. We're focused on unifying data, intelligence, automation, and action in kind of one governed system. And
Yep.
yes, we have great dashboarding also and that. But yeah, that's really one of the ways that differentiate us.
Got it. All right. I mentioned advice before. I'm going to ask you advice. So if you could imagine, you know, maybe there's probably going to be a lot of folks listening to this who are somewhere in the CIO organization and at a corporation, or maybe they even have a CDO organization, chief data officer, depending on how they're organized. And they're trying to navigate the noise, like I just said, of what's going on in the AI age with regards to business intelligence and AI analytics and agentic analytics. And what do you have, like maybe one or two pieces of wisdom for them in terms of what would you do to bring clarity to their decision making?
Yeah, and I think especially you mentioned chief data officer. I'm sure a chief data officer, you get this point of,
Yeah.
don't just chase AI features, right? Invest in a unified, governed, secure data foundation first. And then
Mhm.
if you start from that foundation, I think there's so much low hanging fruit to go after in the whole agentic enterprise pattern, right?
Yeah.
Don't try to boil the ocean, right? Key thing is get a few key wins under your belt. And once those patterns are validated, you'll see innovators throughout your company who lean in and really embrace the automation that's there to harvest. And it's
I love that.
you need to get a couple of key wins under you, demonstrate the pattern, and then it's off to the races.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So let's look at the other side of that journey. Customers of Domo who have made the decision to partner with you guys, and I think you've been with Domo for 15
Since
some odd
day
years.
one, yeah, over 15.
Yeah,
Yeah,
15 some odd years.
yep,
So I'd love to hear like what's your favorite customer success story of all those years? Like, is
yeah,
there one, or maybe there's more than one, but at least one
yeah.
that says this is sort of like this is why we do what we do, right? What's that story?
Yeah, there's so many in this, and it's been a very broad platform, and so there's lots of industries and lots of
Yeah,
use cases. But and there's definitely a recency bias when I think about customers.
yeah, that's right.
But Sony PlayStation is one that always comes to my mind. Like they've been a very long term innovative customer, right?
Mhm.
And I love the innovative customers. And PlayStation, what they do is they democratize their data analytics, and they share it between PlayStation and their thousands of partners and vendors, right? All the developers who build apps or build games for PlayStation, and so they now do this. They've been doing this for years. Thousands of these partners, vendors, all managed with this very small innovative team. But I think more recently, I love what I'm seeing from a company like a customer like Torchy's Tacos, right? Much smaller company, but I love seeing when the light bulb goes off in their heads, like I described that light bulb moment, when the customer realizes what they can easily build themselves on top of Domo. Like I've seen that with Torchy's, right? They operate over 100 stores, and they've been, I'd say, very agile, very innovative. They built this agentic workflow that automatically processes W-9 submissions because they hold a lot of fundraisers. They do these fundraisers they sponsor in communities where they have locations, and they process on all these W-9s. And this workflow integrates with NetSuite. It fully automates what was a very manual process before. And then they saw that. Then they went and they built this solution that helps them have a real-time pulse on customer sentiment that's pulled from lots of different social media channels. And of course, a lot of companies have deployed ways to track their social media sentiment, right? That's not a new thing. But Torchy's goes beyond it. They go beyond just monitoring it, right? The AI agent then produces suggested actions and sends them to them. Like, here's sentiment that we've discovered out there. Here's a suggested action. And then they act on those actions very quickly. So it has this real impact on how they operate and fine tune each of their locations. So it's really cool. And,
Oh, it's awesome.
overall, I'd say, as I mentioned, over the years, I've seen many customers do great things. And if I were to ask for if I would come up with a common theme, I've noticed it's that really Domo resonates with this innovator personality trait. And every business should be motivated to arm their own innovators with superpowers. And every company has these innovators, and they're spread throughout the various organizations, right? You're going to find at least one innovator in your finance team, your marketing team, your HR team, and they know their domain. And so you give these innovators access to a governed, secure intelligence layer and unleash their innovation strengths. Innovators, I love innovators. They are near and dear to my
Yeah,
heart.
I'm with you, man. I heard that. It's incredible. I mean, just seeing it come to life. I mean, it must be really gratifying for you as being part of the founding team. I don't know if you could have predicted this 15 years ago when you started Domo.
Yeah.
Kind of where we are now, right?
Yeah.
Speaking of having trouble forecasting where we're going to be, but sometimes
Wild,
that's
wild world. Yeah,
part of the fun of the ride. But
for
hey,
sure.
listen, Daren, this has been awesome. We are unfortunately out of time for this episode, but I'd love to have you back as you become available maybe later in the year. But I would love to thank you for your time and your candor. I loved hearing the journey that you're on with the company. Want to thank everybody again for your participation in the Enterprise Edge community, your loyal listening to our podcast. Hopefully they are useful to you. If you do have any comments or questions, or if you'd like to get in touch with Daren, just simply drop a comment, or you can direct message me, or just find me on the Enterprise Edge. You can see the URL above my head, and you can track me down, and we'll make the right introductions. But hopefully that was valuable. Wish everybody a great rest of your week, and until next time, take care of yourselves. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Mark.